Hello everyone and welcome back to Black Dahlia. Before we really dive into Disc 3, we're going to take a brief look back at the last little bits of Disc 2, going along the additional paths. The center path is a bad one. Black Dahlia doesn't have a whole lot of deaths in the game, and this is one of the rare ones, where you just choose the wrong path and the SS guy or the mystery gunman just gets ya. Black Dahlia kind of follows the same route as Ripper does in having very few deaths. The only death I'm aware of off the top of my head is that at the literal end of the game is where one of the deaths are. So, we can't go around the center. We went the left last time, so that means we can go over to the right side. The left side we shot at the gas line in order to get him out to get a clear shot. What do we have to do with the right side? Because we have to do something on each of these routes in order to get the gunman out so that we can actually get him. Well, how about a bottle? There he is. And the scene plays out as normal.
This gun is SS issue.
And just as a flavor, remember what happened at the very end of the disc? Merry Christmas, Pearson.
Just like a Fed. Asleep on the job.
I just had the strangest dream.
Yeah, that's real sweet, kid. Now, if I can tear you away from the sugar plum fairies, I got a few more questions I want to ask you about Fisher's murder.
Sure, detective, but didn't we already cover all this at the station house?
Things have changed. We found the rest of Louis scattered around Lake Erie this morning.
Oh, I see. What's on your mind?
Let's start with why the torso killer is delivering to you like he's your goddamn milkman.
And now we are in Disc 3 on the opposite side of the table, getting interrogated. By Merlo, we can take this one of two ways.
I don't know anything about the torso killer, detective. I was supposed to meet Fisher at this warehouse. He was gonna talk to me about this Brotherhood of Thule I've been investigating. Someone obviously got to him before I could.
Not someone, kid. The torso killer. This thing has his handiwork written all over it.
We've already covered this, detective. It just doesn't add up. Fisher had to have been killed by this pro-German society to keep him from talking to me.
All right, all right. Suppose Louis was some kind of pro-Nazi sympathizer. But if this here Brotherhood offed him, like you said, to keep him from squealing, why would they do anything to connect them to him?
They wouldn't, but they might want to cover it up by making Fisher look like just another victim of the torso killer.
Maybe. But get this. Louis had the word Nazi carved in his chest. Whoever did this wasn't trying to cover up Louis' connection to some Nazi-loving bunch of weirdos. The person what did this hated Nazis. I think they were sending a warning to this here Brotherhood of yours.
I didn't know that. Now this really muddles things up. If I learn anything else, detective, I'll be sure to let you know.
All right, kid. What do you know about the stiff in the abandoned factory? How does he play into all of this?
The dialogue just sounds a lot better when you're actually helping Merlo along, because you can kind of hardball him.
I'd never seen him before, but I'm pretty certain he was a German operative.
What gives you that idea?
The SS issue gun he was using to try to put holes in me. Has he been identified yet?
Don't ask me, kid. The FBI's handling that. Looks like you'll have to visit our pal Winslow for that information.
I still say that if you want to find Fisher's killer, you should find out who the dead crowd's friends are.
I don't buy that. They already got to Louis at that point. Why come back to his hideout and start poking around some more?
Maybe he had something they wanted.
Could be. It's about as good an explanation as we're gonna get at this point, I guess. You remember anything else, be sure to tell me. Okay, Hotshot?
Of course, Detective.
And that's pretty much how it rolls out. But of course, I'm wanting to get a little bit more detailed, so let's head back, start over, and do the opposite way. Take over the interrogation.
I don't know what the torso killer had to do with this. You should be looking into the gunman from the warehouse. Have you identified him yet?
Kid, I'm telling you, that box was no accident. The torso killer was sending you a message. I want to know why.
My case doesn't have anything to do with the torso killer. I was investigating an outfit that calls itself the Brotherhood of Thule. They're a fascist organization who may have some connection to the Nazis.
What the hell do they have to do with this?
You still haven't answered my question yet. Have you identified the gunman?
Oh, the FBI's handling that. Looks like you'll have to talk to Winslow. Maybe you'd rather talk to him anyway. Eh?
I'm not trying to be uncooperative, Detective. I've got my own case to consider. I've got to get at the facts if I'm going to make any sense out of it, and the more that I know about this gunman, the closer both you and I will be to finding out who killed Louis.
All right, kid. One last question before I go. Any idea why Louis had the word Nazi carved in his chest? Huh?
He what?
You heard me.
I don't know. That just doesn't add up. If Louis was working for the Nazis, but he was killed by them to keep him from talking...
Louis was done in by the torso killer. There's no question about that. The only question is why the torso killer wanted to off Louis. You get at the facts of that, kid, and we'll be a lot closer to finding out who killed him. You remember anything else, be sure to tell me. Okay, Hotshot?
Of course, Detective.
Okay, enough of repeating things over and over. Time to actually get Disc 3 started. Nice to have our office now all nice and clean and actually usable, and compared to having all of Penske's stuff kind of all over the place. Doesn't really help all that much, that map, but I guess good to have. Some things are still the same, but others have changed. For instance, this trophy, which even when I kind of zoom in on that, I cannot read that for the life of me. It's just kind of illegible the way that they did the engraving. However, the books are actually the same from where they were the first and second discs. Wonder why. I guess Pearson doesn't really have any good books in order to replace them with. So, we have the ability to go back to the loft where we dealt with the mystery gunman, or I think it would be best actually if we went over to Sullivan because we haven't seen him in a while, and actually get him up to speed.
First he ruins my stakeout at McGinty's, and now we've got two dead men on our hands. Your boy's too green.
Pearson is more than capable of fielding this investigation.
Oh? And why wasn't my office notified?
This complaint falls under COI jurisdiction. This is Pearson's case, and he had every right to be there.
That's what you said about Penske. And you know what happened to Wally. He couldn't cut it, so the FBI
Don't you bring Walt...
Jimbo! How you doing, sport? We'll finish this conversation later.
Sorry if I got you in a tight spot, sir.
Never you mind about that, son. I'm more than capable of handling that grandstander.
Winslow is a little bit of a sleaze, isn't he? Well, it's been a while. Let's update the boss on our case.
I'm making some nice inroads on this investigation, sir.
I'm sure you are, son. How are you getting along, Jim?
I'm fine, sir.
I remember the first time I killed a man. It was during the Great War. I'll never forget his eyes. It can be a nasty business we're in, Mr. Pearson.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that wasn't much of an update. How about, like, anything... Okay, never mind. Let's get into... It's actually good that we're asking about Penske at this point. We really don't have a whole lot of information.
What did Winslow mean when he mentioned Mr. Penske's fate?
That arrogant... He's got a lot of nerve coming in here telling me how to do my job. Well, never mind about Winslow. One day he'll find out that what goes around comes around. It's Walt you wanted to know about.
Yes, sir.
Walt stepped on some toes, and when his behavior became a little overzealous, the FBI called in some favors, and poor Walt was put up before the board. They declared that he was suffering from nervous exhaustion. They packed him off to a sanitarium.
And that's all you're going to say about that? Oh my goodness. Really wish I got some more out of that. Seems like extra conversation could have... Okay, fine. I'm just going to leave Sullivan's office. Forget it. I might get more information later, I guess. Based on that, there's really only one other place that we could go at this point. Which I guess would be Louis' loft. Now, we were going to meet Louis in this spot. This is the same spot that we got almost shot at by the gunman. Where we were going to meet, I don't believe that it's actually inside his loft, because, we're going to be looking through the loft this video. And it opens up more questions than answers. Louis' loft is very small, and, well, a wreck. Most likely because it has been searched already, I guess. As well as having a whole bunch of symbols all scrawled on every single wall. Each wall kind of making of a different material, at least. So Louis' loft involves a lot of things that you can see and things that you can hear. You gotta be using both of the senses when you're going to be going through the puzzles of this loft anyways. Or at least finding out where the puzzles actually are. Phases of the moon here. Symbols of the planets. Alright. I think the other problem with Louis' loft is that it does involve a lot of hunting. For instance, you heard the floor being a little bit weird as we traveled over it. Turns out, there's a floorboard that we can move. Hey. Inside that floorboard is, well, a puzzle. Kind of a mill house. We'll be taking a look at that a little bit later. Even the symbols are carved into the floor. I actually hadn't noticed that before. I'd assume that Louis made all of these symbols himself. In some sort of, I guess, madness. Trying to figure something out. Because remember, Louis Fichterwald is connected to the Herald of the Knights of the Trinity. So he's pretty much doing his job of, like, spreading the word of, I guess, the Brotherhood of Thule to, for instance, Finster, connected to the Sergeant-at-Arms, who wants nothing to do with the Brotherhood, even though he has ties to it. Ah, there we go. Finally. Over here, we got, well, we wouldn't have access to this area if there wasn't anything to click on, which is including the brush.
What the hell? These runes look like the ones I found in the bag. I wish I knew what Penske had been on to. Maybe his case has more to do with mine than I thought.
Didn't really catch all that. Speaks in German. Anyways. So those runes, you can actually write them down if you want on a piece of paper, but we'd also have a notebook in the game that you can also make your own notes for. I personally don't use it a lot myself, because really the most important notes that are going to be written down by Pearson, he's going to do himself automatically. I think the main problem I do have with the notebook is that he doesn't write it immediately, so him writing down those specific runes are going to show up a little bit later down the line. Anyway, good that we have those. We have that item from the floorboards. I just want to make sure that we have everything that we need, because there should be another really small thing that we're able to... There we go, right there. A keyhole. Well, we don't have a key at this point, but we gotta remember that it's there, at least. So, as much as I would like to stay in this loft and kind of figure things out, let's just head back to the office and begin to go through what we have in our inventory at this point. Kind of neglected to do that. So, back in our thinking square, that's what I like to call it. Let's take a look at our inventory.
What have we here? The Hotel Cleveland, huh?
So if you remember, we get the matchbook from the mysterious gunman with the SS gun. We can look at that matchbook soon enough, but we also have the parchment sheets back, Helen's notes, the bag of runes, another puzzle that's just sitting around doing nothing. And then we can really get a look at Helen's notes properly. So she, again, translated all of the parchment sheets. One having to do with summoning the powers of Odin, and one having to do with summoning Odin. And what it results in. 3 vessels where they're committed. The skull of an atheling, a cup of ashwood, and Dahlia's dark prison. 7 shimmering barriers thus are broken. The warm earth is now soft and sated. To summon the grey god to his throne. And then we have his powers conveyed. Similar, but with a little bit of differences here. It needs 3 vessels, but it also needs 3 conveyances. So, Cup of Ashwood and the Witness Pure of Heart. Whereas the conveyances involve the Heart of the Homeland, Mimer's counterpart, and Dahlia's dark prison. So an additional 3 things. Dark and dwarf delved from stony depths. Quite a tongue twister. Suffer 1 night for each covenant and await the bearer of the brand. Share Mimer's quaff with his scald. Cast out the soft and sightless eye, and now the black tomb begins to beckon, which will convey the sacred soul. Watch the witness face his doom. Thus is the grey god now usurped, and Thule is become his tomb. Interesting. About overturning Odin. In this case, taking the powers of Odin for yourself. And becoming the new god. Anyway. Really not much we can do about the notes at this point. So, let's look at the Hotel Cleveland matchbox. Or matchbook. On the other side, we have a phone number. Slightly different than last time. GB5637. But, let's see. Inside. yeah, we were able to see this in the scene. Mulhaven. Remember that name? This would be the third name out of that stained glass puzzle that we're now going to be investigating since Fischerwald and Finsterlau are done. Looks like we're going to have some time to scribe this disc. But we also have a new location to look at if we really want to. But now we have this to look at, the lockbox. The lockbox kind of shares the same kind of puzzle that the Bag of Runes does, where it's just kind of sitting in your inventory waiting to be solved. We really can't do anything about the Bag of Runes, but we can, and kind of have to this disc, figure out the lockbox. And the way you do that is by, well, tinkering with it. In all honesty, there is really no hints or anything to really say how to actually figure out how to do the lockbox, which is super annoying. What this pretty much means is that you're going to be pretty much just fiddling around with the parts that you're able to interact with. Just little tiny sliding pieces. And of course, you have to click and drag them in order to see which direction they can go. And based on that, just kind of good luck to you, I guess. This is kind of the point where you're going to be looking up a walkthrough to see how it's going to help you. Because the game doesn't. It just expects you to fiddle around. It's not the only puzzle that actually has you do that too. By the time you get to some things that automatically decide to displace themselves, you know you're on the right track. Because then you're able to do more things. And eventually what we're trying to actually do is get it so that a little piece on the bottom center, pretty much right in the middle of the window and the door, that little bottom piece that's colored differently, we want to lift that one up. That is our goal. So we do that. Oh, that closes that up. Okay. So eventually at this point, if we were to go about working on the main front side, we can open that up again, because that's actually blocking off our ability to fiddle around with the door. But we had to do that for all of the additional stuff over on the left and on the top of the chimney. How do you know that? Like, how do you know this? And, like, just gotta figure it out. Again, the fact that this puzzle is in this game and with no real hints as to how to figure this stuff out, it can be super frustrating. We move this over and we have an open space ready to go. Right here. Open that up. And there we go. 2 items. Both of them we need. But I would say the most important one is not the key in the lockbox, but the signet ring that we also get into it. The key, of course, we kind of know where it goes, but the signet ring is going to be super important. It's really the reason why we have to open the lockbox. Interesting, it shares the same shape as our cursor. Okay, so with that really annoying puzzle out of the way, you can see that Hotel Cleveland is available, but we need to take a stop back at Louis' loft because we have that key. Still got a loose floorboard there. I don't know what the picture is right over the side there. I couldn't tell you. Alright. Back to this keyhole. Alright, let's stick a key inside of it. There we go. And, well, let's just say it's another puzzle. Why they turned a simple act of putting in a key and making it a puzzle, I have no idea. Because you have to do a certain sequence of turning the key and moving it and pulling it out and pulling it back, pushing it back in again in order to actually get the tumbler to go. So you gotta push it in, you have to then turn it to the left, pull it out, And you have to make sure that the cursor is the right way, then turn it all the way to the right. Then you gotta push it back in, turn it right back to the center, and then pull it out. And for some reason, that makes the spring open. Our reward?
It looks like a tooth. I wonder why Louis kept it locked up.
I wonder indeed. It's actually an item that we really don't really have any purpose for right now, because we honestly don't know what it is, other than being a tooth, or in this case, the inventory calls it a fang. This fang, though, you know it has some importance to it because it has a whole bunch of runes scorched into it. At least it looks like it's scorched. Either that or it's like a Sharpie. I doubt it, though. We'll see why we have a fang a lot later in the disc. But with that, Louis' Loft is actually complete. It takes a little bit, especially with getting the lockbox figured out. If you're doing this the first time, you're going to be sitting down for like maybe a half hour trying to tinker around with the lockbox, instead of, taking a hammer to it like a normal person would at this point. But with that, we don't have to go back to Louis' Loft, and next time we can go into a brand new area, the Hotel Cleveland. See you next time, everyone.